There were complaints on both sides. From our Eastern team, we would hear often that they would say, oh my gosh, working with the Americans, all you want to do is talk. And then you would hear on the American side them saying that, oh my gosh, we try to collaborate with our Eastern European teammates and they don't say anything, there's no collaboration.
I know that we're all different, but these are the strengths. How did you go about communicating this, making them feel valued, where they may not understood each other's all that much?
So, it really began,
Welcome, listeners. I'm Seb Wichmann, your host of the DoGood Insider, where we dive deep into raw and meaningful conversations with visionary founders and CEOs who see beyond profits, elevating the lives of employees and vendors and the planet we call home. Today, we are joined by Chris Hewish, the Chief Strategy Officer and former CEO, who has been instrumental in Xola's remarkable journey from a 200-person company to a global force of 1,200 employees spanning multiple continents in just 5 years' time. Under Chris's guidance, Xola has maintained its core mission of democratizing game development while navigating the complex waters of multinational expansion. His team bridges Eastern European process-oriented approaches with Western collaborative thinking, all while integrating a Chinese business culture with an emphasis on speed and efficiency. What makes Chris's approach particularly valuable is his candid approach to discussing both the successes and challenges of building a cohesive remote culture across diverse geographies. From transforming ad hoc learning practices into structured development programs to maintaining creative expression at scale, Chris offers insights into the human side of global growth. So welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Seb. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to talking with you more about all of this.
Yeah, I'm super excited. In our pre-chat, what really struck me, Chris, in the conversation we have had, to dive straight into and to provide value to other CEOs, to other founders, to other CHROs of small, medium enterprises, is really this piece around, under your leadership, Chris, Xola has grown remarkably over 5 years' time. And when I listened to you, what stood out to me that you guys are across continents and you had to bridge this gap across cultures from the Eastern European style of working to China and other continents. Talk us through kind of let's maybe start with the differences about each of those demographics, if you will, and kind of how you brought them together, working with all of them in a cohesive unit.
Certainly. So 3 very different cultures, amazing cultures, all with their own unique benefits and superpowers. And as you said, it is quite a task to bring such a different group of people together to really all work in the same direction to achieve, a common goal. And the company itself has been around for 20 years now, although as you've pointed out, the real rapid growth has occurred over the past 5 years or so. And the company began in Eastern Europe. And as it grew and it came to the US and relocated its headquarters here and started to build up more of a Western team, we saw that initial sort of dynamic of having 2 very different cultures. As you mentioned, in Eastern Europe, particularly in Russia, it's very much a sort of project task-oriented mindset, a little bit more hierarchical than you would have in a Western company. Very, very talented, incredibly talented engineers. Around the games industry my whole career, and we've always seen that engineers coming out of Eastern Europe tend to be just phenomenal, incredible with math and all of that, but very, very logical and process and task oriented in their approach. But then you come and you start working in the West and you have a little bit more of a sort of lateral thinking mindset. You have teams that feel much more comfortable challenging the status quo, who, are maybe a little bit more comfortable with just being given the objective, and then they'll go figure out the best way to achieve it. And this is a little bit, well, it's not a little, it's quite a bit different than the culture over there. So we early on, when I first joined the company and was really tasked with helping these two growing groups of people within the company get along, I really found that one of the common complaints there were complaints on both sides. And on sort of from our Eastern team, we would hear often that they would say, oh my gosh, working with the Americans, all you want to do is talk. You get on meetings, they go on forever, nothing gets done. And then you would hear on the American side them saying that, oh my gosh, we try to collaborate with our Eastern European teammates and they don't say anything, they offer no feedback, there's no collaboration. And both groups thought that the other was really underperforming, but the reality was it was just very different styles. So, really got in and laid the groundwork to let remind everybody that we're working towards a common goal, highlight what the strengths of each cultural style are for the other, and really help them understand how that all worked. And then, played a little bit of a translator, not literally translating, but more intent translation of when different groups were together trying to explain across to one another what was going on. And then, as you said, we really expanded into Asia. We have a great team in Greater China as well as Southeast Asia, although these are two very different groups. And that brought its own challenges where in Asia, there's a culture of moving incredibly fast. If you're, quite literally, if you're not responding within a few hours, then companies think that you're just dropping the ball. And there's just a real desire to move quickly, but also to do things in a way that really respect a very unique culture in Asia as well. One of the examples is even in our messaging as a company, where we do a lot with commerce and payments, going over there and doing trying to take the marketing messaging we had from the West and taking it over where the messaging was all about profit and really talking about money in a very direct way. That was kind of a cultural taboo, right? Where it was viewed as, at least publicly expressing, conversations about money was kind of not really the way to go. So, in addition to the moving fast and understanding how to communicate in ways that fit the cultural norms, we realized it was very important to build up a much larger team there than I think you would initially expect, but do that so that the team could really run the business themselves. And that goes sort of back to how we're working the entire business and where we have these different regions and really give them a lot of autonomy. And we can talk more about that later. But it's really fascinating to see these different cultures. And, I think the mistake a lot of people make is they just don't take the time to respect that there are different ways of thinking and working, and, making sure that that's recognized and communicated across the company is important.
It is so fascinating, Chris, because I interview CEOs, founders, and CHROs quite often, and to be quite frank, I have not heard somebody talking about the differences across continents and cultures the way you have. And so, again, that really sparked my interest, my curiosity of somebody who's a learning and development expert focusing on culture. Not to say that I'm not aware about this, but usually I don't hear that detail and that specificity of that type of conversation within these types of companies. Tell me or tell us a little bit about, was that something that you picked up straight away, or you went through your own trials and errors to figure that out? Or, was it just like, guys, we have different cultures, we need to cater for a different approach and recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses? What was that journey like for you to get to this point where you just know that there are differences and we're not all the same?
So for me, I think it comes down to a few things. My parents were immigrants to the country, right? So first of all, even though I was born here, my parents were from another country. So right out of the gate, there was a little bit of a, cultural difference at home, right, between my parents and what I was growing up around. And then that was further amplified by the fact that we moved around quite a bit. So as a kid, I was moving around and seeing different parts of the country and seeing different cultures even within the country. And I think that really gave me an early appreciation and just a very intrinsic appreciation for the fact that there are many different people with many different points of view and just coming from different perspectives, right? And taking, the time to honor that and be aware of it. And then that really matched well with my sort of career journey when I got into game development and saw all these different types of developers where you have engineers and artists and game designers all trying to work together. And even though they may be from the same geographical culture, there's certainly functional and discipline culture differences between those groups. So I think that's where my upbringing, my sort of the nature element or the nurture element kind of got put to use in a work context and honed.
So, like looking through the lens of you upbringing, you having grown up in that type of environment where you started respecting different cultures from a very early age. As you approach Xola and through your leadership, was that something that's was that on your agenda straight away where you said, look, we have different cultures, and because you were looking through the lens of your own upbringing, you very quickly identified we need to kind of bridge the gap and communicate different challenges or different ways of approach pretty much immediately and address that?
It was, Seb. That was actually one of the key mandates from our founder when I was brought into the company. After he and I got to know one another, he and quite honestly, he knew some people that I had worked with previously who were also Eastern European developers when I was running some studios, and he heard from them that I was very, had a good sort of skill set of being able to really bridge these differences between cultures and disciplines. So when I came in, that was one of the primary mandates for me, was to help what he had seen, which was a growing divide between some of his executives from different cultures. And I was able, thankfully, to come in and have that experience and understanding and help sort of smooth things out and do my parts to help the company.
Yeah, that is amazing. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the specifics around the different, I guess, cultural approaches, how you kind of brought them together, because like a lot of founders, a lot of CEOs, CHROs that are listening right now, they are in a similar situation where we're kind of aware about the differences that cultures bring with them, but we may not be directly aware about the specifics within the culture of how they really operate. And then the next step, okay, once we know, how do we actually address this? What are we actually specifically, practically going to do? Is it about that you brought different teams together and said, guys, I know that we're all different, but these are the strengths. These are how did you go about communicating this, making them feel valued where they may not understood each other's all that much?
So, it really began by coming in and showing respect and listening, and there, understanding that there would be an initial kind of resistance. Anytime you come into a new organization, there's always some inherent resistance, but coming in and, I really took the time to build a rapport with people, kind of listen, help solve some of their problems right early on, just build that whole level of trust before then following up and sharing, like, hey, just a reminder, everybody, we're all on the same team, and then helping people understand of like, hey, when you maybe are talking about someone in another culture and you're kind of not disparaging, but saying something like, oh my gosh, they're they maybe they don't think for themselves, right? Is a comment that sometimes I would hear. Like, well, you have to counteract that and say, well, wait, why don't you take a moment to understand where they're coming from, right? And, what it's like for them and how they've been educated and raised and the culture they grow up in, and sort of just shedding that light or sharing that perspective. So building trust and rapport initially, and then being a voice to share a perspective right from the other side. But, again, not in a way where I was telling people that they were wrong or, admonishing them or anything, because people will shut down at that point. But that seemed to really help. And, taking the time to even understand, things like how do you praise people from different cultures, right? Because that can be very different. Some cultures, public praise is fine. Others, it's like, no, you do that more in private. So little things like that go to building the trust and that rapport.
Such a big topic, isn't it?
It really
looking
is.
At, segregation of nationalities, like beyond just business, right? And to make people feel valued. At DoGood, we are all about helping small, medium enterprises to nurture and to build culture across geographics, right? Across different types of approaches. And this piece around respect that you just mentioned is so valuable, right? By merely listening and by being curious about different approaches, to learn from them, and not just to say, look, my approach is the approach that's just, it's the right approach, or the one that we should, kind of adapt or go with, is such a valuable skill. So, my hope would be for other CEOs and founders and CHROs to really think about this and to start appreciating people's approaches. Because, like, I'm not sure what you think, maybe let's talk about this a little bit. Like, to me, there are always two questions I ask myself, like one of which is, are people willing to perform? And can they perform in terms of their own capabilities, right? And kind of this piece around, can they perform? We're trying to figure that out through our kind of interview process and onboarding and so on, to make sure that the capabilities stack up against competencies where we have gaps within our companies. But the piece around, are they willing to perform? And I would say that yes, they usually are very willing to perform. It's not that people don't want to perform. It's just that if our perception is that they don't perform well, there maybe is a disconnect. Maybe the way we lead, maybe the way they feel appreciated, maybe the way they feel valued, maybe the way they express themselves, which is not commonly known as the best way to do so. Talk us through a little bit this piece around your staff, whether or not they are willing to perform or not, and what we can do as leaders to make them feel valued and make them feel appreciated and make them feel part of the solution.
Absolutely. So look, I believe that most people truly do want to perform. They want to do a good job and, feel proud about what or feel at least that they're contributing to something. And I'm a firm believer, I'm a firm believer that when you have somebody who is underperforming or not performing, that the first place you have to look is at yourself as a leader, right? And I've always believed that if somebody is failing within a company, that the first thing is like, okay, what are we doing wrong with managing them? Are they, not properly resourced? Are they, in the wrong position? Or is it not clear to them what they need to do? How can we support them better to succeed? And, I think if you have that kind of mindset and your team sees that, you'll find that the team starts to just feel more comfortable, and that in and of itself can lead people to performing better. I often say there's a phrase that I had heard a long time ago, which really resonates with me, which is a company culture, or any employee is either in a survive or thrive mode. And when you have people that are in just a survive mode, you're not going to get the best out of them. They're only looking to survive. They're worried about their job. They're frustrated. They don't know what they need to do, and they're just getting by. So if as a leader you can get them shifted over to a place where they feel they can thrive, they feel that they're supported, that it's clear what the company is all about, even though the path obviously isn't always clear on how to accomplish things. But if you can understand the company vision and your place within a company, and that you have the safety and security to try to overachieve, then that will in my opinion, get the best out of people.
I love that. I think we are very much singing off the same song sheet, that I can see you being very passionate about your people. And so yeah, thank you so much for providing such great leadership and insights around culture and across continents, right? That is amazing. Talk us through Xola a little bit. The other hinge point why I really wanted to talk to you, Chris, is you mentioned something so powerful. Obviously you guys are in the gaming industry, but you spoke, into this piece around that you're looking, and your vision of Xola and the purpose of your company is really to creating this creative expression to really everyone, right? Including probably staff and partners and clients, customers, and so on. Talk us through this what is this heart, this vision, this purpose for you about allowing your association, if you will, to express themselves creatively, and what it means to them. And who is Xola? Talk us through this a little bit.
Sure. So our whole mission at Xola is we began, really looking to democratize the whole business of games, and looking around, realizing that there are so many great creative ideas that come from anywhere in the world. But unfortunately, most people have very limited access to the infrastructure that allows them to take something that they've created and successfully bring it to market. So we felt, gosh, that's not really fair. Let's open that up and give everybody the ability to bring a great game that they've created, to bring that to market on a global scale, and to do that with the same sort of capabilities that the biggest publishers in the world may have. And we work with the biggest publishers as well as individual developers, so companies of all sizes. But it was really important for us where we only work in the games industry. We're all gamers. We love games. It's really kind of a lifestyle. So being able to support that on a global level is incredibly important. And that came out of the company's roots, where the founder, when he started the company, he saw that firsthand, where, he was in a region where there wasn't as much access to a lot of the infrastructure, but there were still great ideas. And right out of the gate, saw that this was a great opportunity. And as we've grown, we've kind of evolved what our vision is a little bit, and what our passion is. So it's still all about that equal access for everybody. But we really are now in a position where we can leverage a lot of our connections and the 20 years of work that we've done to start bringing opportunities together for people. So we can kind of go beyond just democratizing the business and creating access for everyone, to a point now where we can actually start to bring opportunities together, so that we can help connect people with different opportunities, whether they're business or technology oriented.
Again, I love that, right? Democratizing your own IP, your own creative expression. I think we need more of this in the world, right?
We really do. Yeah. And we live in such an amazing time where the tools to create are just so powerful and so easy to use. Really, anybody who wants to create content, whether it's a game or art or a book or music or whatever it might be, the tools are all there and they're relatively easy to use, right? So you can have small groups of people, for instance, in the games industry, that can use these powerful game development tools to make incredible experiences and incredible artistic visions that they can actually bring to life. And that's amazing. And our goal is to say, okay, the game itself is one piece, and we want you to focus on that because that's your passion. The business part of it, in order for you to succeed as a business, is very complicated as well. And there hasn't been that same level of comprehensive tools that allow you to sort of have a business business engine or something that you can actually run your own business with. So that's where we stepped in and saw that as an opportunity and a way to keep, to allow people from anywhere in the world to bring their visions, to the global stage while still focusing on doing what they love, which is making great games.
Fascinating. Yeah. So I must just say, thank you so much for being in the game. No pun intended, right?
As we say, enjoy the game is certainly part of our.
So good. So let's change a little bit. I guess the cadence here, or the kind of our questioning. Talk us through from a training aspect, from an aspect around right now, or if we go back 6 months ago, what have been some of those challenges that people, CEOs, founders, CHROs can relate to, where you say, that is not just happening within Zolo, but I believe also happening within so many other companies. Maybe it's about upskilling, maybe it's about, kind of competency gaps. Like, where are your current challenges, or maybe past challenges, where you say we really have grown through that, we understood something, or we are figuring that out right now?
I think there's a few. One of the biggest challenges facing us, and we think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's facing any organization. If you're not thinking about it now, you really should be, and viewing it as an opportunity, is just the explosion of AI and the capabilities that AI brings to the table. I know it's a very sort of, there's a lot of opinions, and we're in the very early days, and there's a lot that's undefined in regards to best practices and, the ethical use of AI and all of that. But we really see that as a real opportunity for when it comes to impacting our workflows and our processes, and allowing us to not scale down the team. Instead of reducing the team by 10x, we view this as a way to increase our productivity by 10x and actually bring more capabilities to our partners and to the market. So that's sort of the current challenge that we're looking at. And, and we're not talking just about how do you use GPTs and things like that. We're already way past that. Those are fully integrated into our workflows. It's really the next stage is, looking at AI agents and how can you start to really integrate those into your company and your workflows to, again, enhance the productivity and efficiency of the teams. So that's kind of our big thing. And I would recommend any leader out there should really be looking at this. Yeah.
Is this in particular around customer service, or what kind of roles are you looking at on that end?
It's everything, Seb, honestly.
Everything. Yeah.
It really impacts, yes, of course, customer service, when you're talking about being able to create a better experience for players who come to customer support or customer service. Having those AI agents or bots in place helps everything, speeds things up, really addresses issues in real time, which is fantastic. So that's one area. But we're looking across the board, when you're looking at advertising campaigns or creating content, or look, the people already know about all that stuff. One of the real use cases that we have, right, for it is, as we've talked about, we have different cultures within the company, and we have development teams all over the world. So we have a lot of different languages, a lot of different ways of working. So we'll talk very specifically. It's very hard to get great documentation out of all of our teams, right? Because, quite frankly, what language do you put it in? Because English is not the first language of the entire company, right? And you may have incredibly talented people who, and by the way, I give full credit to our global team. As an American, I only speak English, which I feel very bad about, and I work with these super smart people that speak 2, 3, 4 languages, which is amazing. But expecting them to then document everything very technically and at an English level is not realistic. Well, that's an area where AI can be incredibly helpful, right? Where it can help something as mundane and internal as your documentation. It can help if you have a product owner that has a great idea for a product and has all of these best practices and features and all of this stuff that, is in their mind and is being built. Well, we can use AI to help actually take all of that knowledge and extract it in a way that is easy to communicate over to our marketing and business development teams, who can then go and create go-to-market plans and messaging and all of that in a way that's very accurate. Where, just a year ago, we would have to get these groups together in meetings and try to literally translate across, right, from the product team to the marketing or biz dev team, what it is that the product is all about. And that would, that was not always the smoothest process. So that's just one of many, many different ways that, this can be a powerful aid to a business, to helping it run more smoothly.
Yeah. Amazing. I think, Chris, that was such an invigorating conversation throughout so many different areas, from how do we bring cultures together that don't really know each other, of how their functions, to kind of this whole piece around, the idea of, and I love that, the idea of Xola, that to allow people that to democratize the way how to creatively express oneself. I think that is really pretty special. And a shout out to all companies here. I think we all need to think about this a little bit, right? How do we build this momentum, this community almost around democratizing what? It's not so much about the brand, is it? It's about the service we're offering, the solution we provide. And that kind of needs rallying behind, right? Creating this momentum, creating this movement, creating fans, quite frankly, of brands that feel inspired to advocate, right? To stand behind a brand. If we think about, I don't know, just Apple or whatever it is, just to call one brand out here, right? We're standing behind some sort of idea, right? Maybe as a last notion or the last question to, what, in your opinion, what do you think other companies could do more of to creating this movement, to creating this culture externally, the community, maybe it's a better word, that understands, because we clearly communicated what the value is of rallying behind something that is not just important to us, but also valuable to the wider community?
So I'm a big believer in having a very direct relationship with your customer. In our industry, it's with your players, and having a bidirectional line of communication with your customer. I think there are still many companies that are stuck in kind of an analog era of doing business, where they try to control everything and they're just talking to the customer, and that just is not the way the world is going.
It seems like an old model, doesn't it?
It seems
like
an
a very
model.
Outdated,
exactly,
very egoistic model. It just doesn't work. It doesn't function anymore.
It really is. And what I'm talking about is even going beyond just, some listeners may say, oh, well, no, we connect with our community and we tweet with them or talk with them on X or, whatever platform it may be. And that's great. That is a first step. But what we do, and I think what is really important, is we actually bring our partners into the conversation of what we're building, of how can we help, address their problems? What is it that they need to see for their business? And, you can, and of course, that's a very B2B approach, and a lot of B2B companies do that. But I think you can really expand that, and we're seeing it now starting in the B2C space, where game companies, the ones that are really succeeding, are not only building communities, but they're inviting their communities inside, as it were, to help, have input and help develop the games. And I've talked about this often over the past couple of years, this whole idea that there's a real convergence between creator and consumer. And we've in the past that has been two separate things where the people creating something are one group, and then you have a group that's consuming it, which is a separate group. But I think with all of the tools, things that we've talked about, all of the connectedness of how everybody's connected, and it's very easy to share and be on a global, stage with other people. We're really seeing this convergence where the creator and the consumer truly are one and the same. And the companies that think that way, I think, are the ones that are, really going to succeed, who treat, their consumers as co-creators of what it is that they're building. Obviously, you still want to be a brand steward, and you have your guidelines and things that, make your creation unique still. I'm not saying that you completely hand everything over, but at the same time, bringing people in and not being afraid of your consumer or your player in the case of games, and inviting them into the process is really powerful. And for me, I see that as really being the future.
And kind of your industry, I think, kind of lend itself or kind of leans into, having players part of the solution. But I would say though that it's industry agnostic, isn't it? Like us thinking about and positioning service or product development in a way to say, hey, yes, we want to do market research and really understand our ICP customer, but actually to co-create and to bring them into the equation, give them a voice, give them ownership of, because they don't have the capacity or the capability nor the willingness to produce, right? They just want to consume. And to bring them in, I don't think there's any conflict of interest here to bring them in to say, you know what, let's just co-create, let's have fun with the process, and let's see how we can better cater for your needs. I'm a triathlete, right? I love triathlon. I do things called half Ironmans. And, a lot of times sponsorships, for example, with athletes, one of the areas of sponsorship is for the athlete to come into the product development cycle of handlebars, of materials, of new innovative approaches, and they get very excited about it. And I think also consumers, not just in the gaming industry, but across industries, I think would get really excited about being part of the solution and being asked to co-create and collaborate on something that is possibly quite dear to their hearts.
Absolutely. And I think, you touched on a good point, which is the example I gave of games and players is somewhat industry agnostic. But if you step back and take that idea and go a little more broadly, I think you could find a fit within most industries. So an example, I would have there would be, well, for your example, right, with creating, maybe they're not coming in and creating the handlebars, right, because that's very technical. But there could be, community, colors or skins for the bikes, right, that are inspired or created by the community. Or if you look at over here in the States, American football, of course the fans can't influence the play on the field, right, or anything. But what they can do, and what the National Football League has done a great job of, is encouraging fan activity, whether it's at, parties in the parking lots before the games or different fan events, giving the ability for local teams or local fans to be able to use the NFL branding and logo for local sports, right, at a junior level. So I think there's different ways for different industries that you can accomplish this, creator consumer convergence, even if it's not on the core product itself.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. Chris, thank you so much for your time, for your openness. It's not always that senior executives like yourself are so open with and so vulnerable with what's happening inside the company and what you have done to grow so significantly. So I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and I guess from the listeners as well. So thank you so much for your time, and we stay in touch. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Seb. Thank you for having me.